Hello everybody, welcome back to another review. This one is going to be for the February 16th, 2020 review. I know I'm practically a month behind, and that's with no shows happening, but as you guys all know, a lot of stuff happened. Originally I was holding off so that I could do all this stuff on my new computer, but then, things happened with that. And then I got sick for some reason. I don't know how, but I did. And my schedule's just been all wonky lately. I haven't had 2 days off in a row in a while. It's usually just a day off, and then I work a day or two, and then another day off, and then I work 3 to 4 days in a row, and then a day off, then work, blah, 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 blah. And hopefully that changes here soon. I did change my availability, but that's taking forever to go into effect apparently. So let's do this review. The first match is Jamie versus Hina. Now originally this was a triple threat. Ruka was not well, so a couple matches got changed. It was originally a triple threat between Jamie, Hina, and Itsuki, but Itsuki got added to Leo's retirement match, and this turned into a singles match. Now, I don't think I need to explain why this match's outcome is super obvious. Jamie is really high up on the card, and Hina is pretty much the lowest of the low of the card, other than Rina. But other than that, this match was actually pretty good for what it was, and Hina really did a good job here to not, bring down the match, which is pretty crazy that Rina and Hina are already at a level where they're not bringing down matches. I know that they've technically been wrestling for a while. I think it's been a year or two, but they're also 13, so it's just crazy to me that they're already at a level that they can hold their own in a match. So the match ended with Jamie tapping Hina in 4 minutes and 1 second with a Boston Crab. There just really isn't too much to say about this match. Nothing crazy happened. Jamie basically dominated. Hina got some licks in. It's just a typical opening match between a low high card wrestler and a bottom of the low card wrestler. Moving on to the second match, we have Momo Watanabe and Azumi versus Hana Kimura and Rina. Now, Rina looked very happy to be teaming with Hana, which it's very cool to see that Rina. It's kind of hard to remember Rina and then Hina sometimes. I feel like I do a very good job most of the time, but sometimes it slips out and I mix them up. It's really cool to see that Rina has someone that she looks up to so much and that she likes to emulate. It's a pretty awesome thing to see. Now, hopefully this isn't, just all acting. She actually does look up to Hana, hopefully. Because if not, if it is acting, then I think Rina is doing a phenomenal job, and she's a very good actress. But I just think it's really cool that there are people that look up to other people, like how Kamitani looks up to Utami. So, Azumi took point in the pre-match promo. I'm very curious if they're ever going to do a storyline with Azumi taking over Queen's Quest, or Momo handing over the reins to her or something. It's obvious that Azumi is the real leader. They've all said it before. Momo said it in many times that Azumi is the real leader. Utami said it too. It's just that Momo's the leader on paper, where Azumi is the actual leader. I could see them doing it in two ways if they do decide to ever make Azumi the true leader. Either they have a little internal scuffle where Azumi wishes to be in charge and Momo refuses, so they end up having a singles match with Azumi winning and becoming the new leader, and they respect the decision and go back to being friends. Or they go the route that after a show or something, they have Momo make the announcement that she's handing the reins over to Azumi. I don't know which I would prefer. Maybe the second one, but I would love to see a huge main event singles match between the two, so I'm conflicted. The second one makes it seem like Momo Like I feel like it would hurt Momo's standing more if she just handed it over. To me, it wouldn't, but I feel like it would to a lot of people. Because handing over the reins of, you know, leading a promotion it's never looked upon as like, oh yeah, you're still cool. It's like, oh, you're not as good as that person, you know. The match started off with Azumi and Rina, and they did a great job. Obviously, Azumi would, but Rina really pulled the one out as well. And I'm just constantly surprised by Rina and Hina, you know. You don't really expect too much out of them, but then they go out and actually put on a good performance. I was incredibly surprised that Azumi decided to do her top rope double takedown move here, the one where she grabs one of their arms, runs up the ropes, and then jumps and grabs the head of the other person and then flips both of them. As I didn't think that Rina would be ready for it, but they pulled it off really well. It's just when I think of that move, I feel like it's a move that you need two good people taking it, or else it won't turn out well. You know what I mean? And the fact that she attempted it on Hana and Rina means that most likely isn't the case, because Rina did really well. She did everything she needed to do. You know, she flipped when she needed to. It turned out really good. This match was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I just didn't think it was going to be anything special, but it turned out to be pretty good. I mean, anytime that you have one of the young girls in a match with a bunch of like the higher, more experienced people, the match never tends to be great, you know what I mean? It just tends to be okay. And it's not anybody's fault, it's just that's what happens when you put too much like skill level difference into a match like that. There's going to be a moment where that lower card person is in the match, and to no fault of their own, they're just going to lower the quality of the match, you know, because they're just not that good yet. But it actually turned out pretty good, and I was pleasantly surprised. So Azumi pins Rina with her diving foot stomp in 8 minutes and 7 seconds. And I just want to point out, I love how QQ never holds the ropes for each other after the match. It's unique in a way, and I'm glad they still hold some old Queen's Quest values still. Because in the beginning, and it's still kind of like that, but in the beginning, it was much more so that Queen's Quest was a very swim or die faction. You held your own, there was no one else going to help you. There were many, many instances where one of the members of Queen's Quest was just getting annihilated, beaten up by a bunch of the enemy, you know, constantly getting jumped, and the rest of Queen's Quest were just sitting at the corner, not helping. And it was really cool, because at the time, the only other faction was Odotai. And they always seemed very close-knit and helping each other out. So the contrast was hilarious. That the quote-unquote heel group were the ones that helped each other out and were very close. But then the quote-unquote non-heel group, they were tweeners back then. And, you know, kind of heels in the beginning, but then they just became tweeners very quickly afterwards. But the quote-unquote tweener group were the ones that were like, hey, we know they're fighting you 3-on-1, but you got to do it yourself. And they've kind of lost that as time went on. You know, any group, as time goes on, is going to shift and change values as the members change, because not everyone has the same values. Even if you looked up to the person who was originally leading it, some of your own personality and morals and ideals are going to slip through and start changing things once you're in charge. And I believe that has happened because Momo and Azumi are not like Io. They are much more like friendly, you know, non-serious girls. Whereas I feel like Io was like super mature and completely focused on wrestling. Whereas I feel like Momo and Azumi have a lot more different interests, you know, like video games and all that stuff. And that kind of shine through. So Queen's Quest have gotten a lot softer in that aspect, but there are still a lot of things that are from the original Queen's Quest that shine through, like the not holding the ropes for each other after the match. I just find that very awesome. So moving on to the third match, and I was not looking forward to this. It's Leo's retirement match. Leo Onozaki and Saya Ida versus Jungle Kiona and Itsuki Hoshino. Now, I was definitely very much not looking forward to this match for a simple reason. I was tired of crying. We got Kagetsu retirement, then Leo going. It was a rough time. I mean, there just seemed like Stardom has been kind of depressing for the last little while. This match was no exception. It wasn't the best thing ever, as 3 of the 4 wrestlers are not exactly top caliber, but it was a great retirement match for Leo. Sometimes in a wrestling match, skill isn't what's important. It's who's in it. The match starts with Leo and Itsuki, and I really loved how a part of Leo's retirement journey was putting over Itsuki a bunch of times. I mean, this time was unintentional because it was originally supposed to be Ruka, which makes me wonder, like, how the match would have been different. But it is nice to see that one thing I really thought about here is that Jungle must be having a super hard time with this, because this is the second friend that she had to retire. She also retired Hiromi, and there's actually, I actually made a video about it because it's one of the best matches Stardom's ever put on, like ever. It's Hiromi and Konami, I believe, versus Jungle and Momo. And you guys might be thinking, whoa, why did someone else choose Jungle and Momo? And the reason for that is because Hiromi, Jungle, and Momo were all a team in the earlier days called the Rookies, and they would team up and they challenged for the triple belts actually quite a bit. But back to Jungle, it just must be tough having to retire 2 of your friends, because in Hiromi's retirement match, she was the one who put away Hiromi, and you could see the anguish on her face. And here, Jungle is also the person to put away Leo. So not only was she in the retirement match of 2 of her friends, she actually retired 2 of her friends. That's got to be tough. That's a lot of weight, because you feel like you got to do something with that. You know what I mean? You can't waste their quote unquote sacrifice for you. And you could also see the anguish on her face. I don't feel like it was as much as Hiromi's, but you could see that she was sad. You know, she was very sad about pinning Leo. Maybe I'll go back in and edit my old video so that I can upload that one again, the Hiromi one, and take out all the footage and replace it with stills, because it's actually one of my favorite videos that I've ever made. It was like I looked so much into the match back then. I would love to do that again, but I can't use video, and it's really hard to give like a play-by-play and an explanation on why certain things are great if you can't see those things, you know what I mean? So the match ends with Jungle pinning Leo in 8 minutes and 34 seconds with a flying body splash. Basically a top rope body splash that she does. Immediately after, Itsuki starts crying. Like, immediately after the match ends, Itsuki starts crying. And it's interesting because I don't understand how Itsuki, like, functions. She's literally a bundle of nerves walking around. It's so crazy. But here, I don't blame her. Someone who is apparently pretty important to her. I don't know how important, because I don't know what's going on backstage. But Itsuki and Kamatani seem to really respect her, at least. And Itsuki was crying like crazy. So afterwards, Leo starts crying as well, which really hit me hard because Leo kind of kept up a good face up until now. But yeah, she started crying finally. It must be tough because you could probably hold it in all the way up until the very end, and then the ending finally hits you. Like, you're like, oh wow, this is really it. And then the emotions come and you just can't stop it. So Jungle then goes on to give Leo a very sweet speech, letting her know that her time in Stardom had purpose and she inspired people, which I completely agree with. Sure, she didn't really accomplish too much and she didn't really get that good, but there are clearly people that connected and resonated with her, that looked up to her, and she very well did. She did give people courage. I mean, watching her try so hard to progress, kind of inspired me a little bit. As you guys know, I was kind of like a Leo fan. I would support her online. I was 100% behind her getting added to Queen's Quest. And anytime people would talk crap about her, I would be, one of the first people to defend her. She wasn't that great, but she brought more to Stardom than just talent, And I feel like that was a lot like how Hiromi left, and that's the kind of legacy she left behind. And Leo has left behind a legacy. I would just like to take this time to personally thank Leo, as I've always supported her, and I'm glad she's doing what's right for her. Then they go on to Leo's retirement ceremony. Itsuki and Kamitani were bawling their eyes out when saying goodbye to Leo, which was very sweet to see. You just don't know who has connections with who, backstage. Everyone just makes it seem like they hang out with their own faction and that's it. So when you see something like this, it's very nice to see. Next is Stars, and Hanan is crying super hard as well. Everyone else seems to really like Leo. It's clear that everyone in Stardom, at the very least, had a positive thought process and feelings towards Leo, which is great to see because, you don't like to see someone quitting when no one else liked them, like Hazuki. So moving on, because the rest of it is just super depressing. The fourth match, which is Konami and Layla Hirsch versus Julia and Maika. The match starts off with Layla and Maika. I hope they don't have to keep wearing those shirts for too much longer though. They have some pretty cool gear and I want to see it. I understand wearing the shirts, in the beginning because it's new merch and you want to sell it, you want people to see it, but it just makes them look worse, in my opinion. This match could have been better, but I think they pulled out a decent match. I think there was just too many communication errors or something between Layla and Maika as the show went on, the match went on or whatever. Julia had a very solid performance here as well. There really wasn't too much for me to say here. It was just a decent, good match, you know what I mean? So Julia pinned Layla in 8 minutes and 42 seconds with the Glorious Driver. Donna Del Mondo's win streak continues. Now moving on to the semi-main event, we have the fifth match, which is Mayu Iwatani, Arisa Hoshiki, Tam Nakano, Riho, and Starlight Kid versus Natsuko Tora, Saki Kashima, Natsu Sumire, B. Priestley, and Zoe Sky. Right away I noticed that Riho straightened her hair. I never really noticed until then that she kind of has like a small curl at the bottom. But yeah, in the pre-match promo at the very least, she had straight hair. It looked good. This is also 2 preview matches that we would see in the future, or we were supposed to see in the future. Natsuko versus Arisa and Mayu versus Saki. And I just really hope that the high-speed belt is coming off Riho soon. During the pre-match introductions, they messed up Zoe's nameplate. They showed one from a match that she had won with the Backcracker. Instead of saying her Twitter and all that, it just said 2 minutes something blah 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 Backcracker. So the match starts off with Starlight Kid and Zoe, and then goes on. It's a very, very good match. I definitely recommend anybody watching it. So later in the match, Saki seems to take every opportunity she can to hurt Mayu. There was a long bit where Saki and Mayu were in the ring together, and Saki was just going at it. She wanted to hurt Mayu. She wanted to make Mayu try to face her in a singles match. Odo Tai seemed to have the advantage for a lot of the match, as they usually do when it comes to team matches like this, as they're not held by the rules like most of the other teams are. Arisa stopped Sumire from hitting the Bronco Buster on Riho, For those of you who don't know, there is a small storyline going on that Sumire really wants to hit the Bronco Buster on Riho, saying something that she really wants to sit on that pretty face or something like that. And so expect that for a while anytime Riho and Sumire are in the same match. Most likely for a long time, Sumire is going to try to attempt it and always get stopped. But then maybe one day hit it. We don't know. Tam and Arisa work really well together as always. I feel like I'm a broken record at this point when it comes to them. They're just so good together. Arisa and Natsuko are setting up their next match perfectly as well. Definitely showing some fire. Natsuko's new move could use some work for sure. But if she can get it down, it would be very awesome. It's very complicated. It starts in the Samoan like drop. It starts in like the Samoan drop position. I don't know the exact term for that position, because I know when their opponent is like facing down, it's the fireman carry. But then when they're like facing the same way as the person holding them, I don't know if that has a different like name to it or anything. I don't know. But yeah, she starts there and then she does like a bunch of like spinning with them, and then they land in a side slam. It's a really cool move. It's just the 2 times that she's done it so far, I think this is the first time, and then the next time she does it, she just hasn't been able to be able to pull it off very well, you know. So Natsuko pins Arisa in 17 minutes and 48 seconds with her spinning side slam. That's what they named it so far. That's what I used to name her, F Crash, before that got named. So hopefully she gives it a name here soon so we can stop calling it the spinning side slam. For the aftermatch promos, Natsuko demands a match after pinning Arisa, and Arisa responds with basically, I never denied you a match. I feel like I accepted, and so they accepted. Mayu then accepts Saki's match and says that she wants to choose a stipulation. I can't be completely sure because obviously I haven't seen it, but according to some people, originally they were planning on doing like a different kind of match than the one they ended up doing, but they cut that out of the aftermatch promo after they found out that the matches were going to be, like, all the matches were going to be canceled and that the show that they were going to be putting on didn't have people. And then they ended up turning it into a lumberjack match. So Mayu accepted, but but she wanted to choose the stipulation. So moving on to the main event, which is crazy to me that this was the main event. But it's nice to see that it was. It's the Future of Stardom title belt challenge between Utami Hayashishita, who is the current champion, and Saya Kamitani, who was the challenger. And apparently Kamitani looks up to and idolizes Utami, which I didn't know until this point. I follow all of them, but, you know, like, all their stuff is in Japanese, so sometimes I don't really try to translate it, and I just kind of like move on if it's just text and stuff. But yeah, I guess they're close, and Kamitani really looks up to her. The match was better than I thought it was going to be, because neither are really like good enough to carry a match, but them working together was able to put on a good match. You know what I mean? Like, Utami can put on some bangers, but usually it's with people who are very talented and can carry a match. Momo, Jungle, Arisa, you know, Tam, blah, 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 you know, Kagetsu. And Kamitani is good, and she can put on some really good matches, but usually with people who can carry, you know, same list. But putting them together, I was a little worried that neither one of them would be able to carry the other because neither of them are ready yet. But they didn't need to. They lifted each other up. They didn't really carry each other. They just had a good match together, which was really good. Kamitani went on with targeting Utami's right knee. It was a strategy that I felt was very, very smart, as any kind of power wrestler, their knees are very important because without your knee, you can't lift. And a lot of Utami's moves results in lift. The only move that she doesn't need her knee for really is her sleeper hold. But all of her other moves, like all of her ultimate moves, she needs to lift you up. So it was a very, very sound strategy. Kamitani put up a good fight. She definitely made it look like she deserved to be there. If you remember, one of my biggest criticisms with Utami holding the future belt is that none of her opponents really felt like legitimate contenders for it. And then if they were going to feel like a legitimate contender, then it would just be the same problem. No one else would be able to then defeat that new person if they did win it. But Utami pins Kamitani with her torture rack bomb in 14 minutes and 39 seconds. I highly recommend this match. It's very, very good. Utami continued to sell her leg after the match, which surprised me because I didn't expect her to keep doing that, but I'm glad she did. Utami then goes on to say that she's relinquishing the belt, saying that she's aiming higher now for the red and white belt, and that basically holding the future belt seemed unfair and like it didn't really fit her anymore. So Utami is officially no longer the future champion. She has no belts anymore. Utami then talks about how rough QQ is having it right now, you know, with them losing all their belts essentially, them failing to get some belts, and B, betraying them. She then offers a position in Queen's Quest to Kamitani. Kamitani accepts and QQ rejoice. They all, you know, gather in a big hug and, you know, are jumping in for joy and whatnot. They then ask Azumi to make sure it's okay with her. Azumi asks the crowd, and the crowd seems okay with it. So then Kamitani is now officially Queen's Quest. Kamitani then turns and asks Itsuki to join her. Itsuki then refuses and joins Stars, saying she wishes to beat Kamitani, not follow her, starting their rivalry. Tam seems pretty hurt and betrayed by Kamitani, but not in like a you betrayed me way, in more of like a I'm sad you chose not to follow me way. Their interactions on Twitter later made it seem even more like that when Kamitani apologized to Tam, saying like I'm really, really sorry, and Tam was like, why are you giving me a half-hearted apology? You know, you chose your way, we'll be seeing each other. So it's very interesting to see like a betrayal that's not a betrayal, because Kamitani had no reason to, or had no obligation to actually join Stars other than her connection with Tam, and her choosing another faction isn't a betrayal, but it can feel like a betrayal, and I really like how they're going with Tam. Then they spend an absurdly long time trying to teach Kamitani the QQ outro, which is hilarious because it is in English. I believe it's the only outro that is in English. I mean, you have Stars saying like we are stars or something like that, and then they used to say we are stardom, but Queen's Quest is the only one where there's like a lot more English. Sure, part of it is in Japanese, but then they have the bow down to the queens, which is a lot to say in English if you don't know English. So there you go. That's the show. It was a very good show for what it was. I mean, they had to change 2 matches, and I feel like the changes were pretty good. Nothing against Ruka, but I feel like if Ruka was in Leo's retirement match, it wouldn't have been nearly as good as it was. She's honestly, in my opinion, Ruka is the worst person on the roster now. Even before she was. Because I do believe Leo was better. And it was cool to see Itsuki in there instead, because it made it a better match. Now, would have been a better match because Ruka had that connection with them? It might be, you know. Sometimes skill is not what's important. But this is what we got. So I can't, you know, it's really hard to compare a what if to what we saw, because the what if you could be hyping up more or like lowering more than what you could actually get. Overall though, the entire show was really good. I feel like there isn't a single match that is worth skipping. You know what I mean? If I had to pick one match that you could just kind of skip and not really lose anything or miss anything, surprisingly, it's probably the Konami and Layla versus Julia and Micah match. It was just the most okay match out of the entire show. All right, so moving on to the patron part of the video. I did get a new patron. It was quite a while ago, honestly. It was after the first one, obviously, but it was quite a while ago. I feel a little bad, but because I'm not making very many videos like back to back right now. My schedule's been so crazy. So the new patron is Miss Solar. I'm assuming it's Solar because I actually know this person. Talk on the Discord a lot, and she's a big Mamamoo fan, so I'm assuming her name is in relation to Mamamoo, and one of the members is named Solar. So Miss Solar, thank you very much for your pledge. It's so crazy to me that anybody wants or is willing to spend any amount of money on me. It's like, have you ever gotten like a present or something from someone and you just felt like you weren't good enough for that present, no matter what it is? I mean, they could give you like a gumball and you're just like, I feel like this is too high of a value for me, you know? It's really mind-boggling, and it's like super touching that anybody cares enough about what I'm saying or doing that they're willing to spend money that they've worked hard for on me. It's crazy. I don't think anybody can really understand the feeling until it happens. Because I used to look at other people's videos and, you know, they would always talk about their patrons, and then I always felt like I understood what it felt like. But now that it's happening to me, it's just, there's really no way to describe it. It's like getting a present from a complete stranger, you know? Like, in some aspects, it's even sweeter or like even more impactful than getting a present from someone you know, because this person has no obligation towards you in any way. I mean, yeah, you're going to get a present from your family, you know, for your birthday or whatever, but some random person who just happens to like what you make is giving you something, and it's just crazy. I can't describe it. So thank you so much, Miss Solar. And I'll say it again, even though I said I was only gonna say each name once, I'll shout out the names for the entire month that they're in right now, just because I'm not making as many videos as I was. Also, Smack It Down podcast, they also, you know, originally they were my first patron, and now Miss Solar. So thank you, both of you, and I hope my videos are worth it. Alright, well, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed the review. It's going to be a decent length one. Not as long as some of my reviews, but not as short as some of the other ones. I should be getting my review of the No People Gate show up here soon. I might even record that one like right after this one. I'm not going to have notes for it though if I do it that, so I don't know how that's going to turn out. So, bye.